Welcome to the introduction to 2.3. We're going to look at Spanish colonies in the Americas. So we spent some time talking about the explorers, and those explorers have been people like Diaz and da Gama from Portugal, Columbus, Balboa, Magellan sailing for Spain. Now we want to look at life in the Spanish colonies. So again, this is the map we spent a few days already talking about. We have the Portuguese coming around here in Africa. We have the Spaniards coming over here to Central America. Central and South America we're going to focus on. So we're going to spend 2 class periods looking at Spanish colonies. After that, we go to the North American colonies controlled by the British and the French, just to kind of give you a preview where we're going. So of course we have this line of demarcation here, which will get moved over a smidge, so Brazil will be claimed by the Portuguese. But you have such Spanish control in Central and South America. On this map, I want you to notice the Aztec Empire, which it's not highlighted, but this is where they'd be found in the Incan Empire. So I believe this section, you would have already covered the Aztecs and the Incas back in 6th and 7th grade social studies. So we're going to, I think it should be a little bit easier for you to see. I have a 2.3 assignment that has 2 parts to it. The first part is just 5 people, and the second part is a series of reading questions. We're going to spend 2 days on this, so don't feel like you have to get it all done at one time. Again, these are the explorers we've already covered, the early explorers. What we're going to do now is shift from explorers to conquistadors, and the conquistadors are going to be different. They're not necessarily the seafaring captains or these navigators that we would call Diaz and Columbus. Eventually, the Spaniards are going to create this empire, and this map does a nice job showing you the control they have over Central and South America. I want you to note the location of the land they've controlled. It's mostly limited to closer to the coastline or the outside edge of the states. They do a pretty good job taking all of what we would say Mexico here. But in South America, like in this Peru section, like you have the Andes Mountains running here. And the Portuguese are limited over in Brazil because, of course, the rainforest. We're not going to, specifically in South America, the mountains are going to limit them some. Tropical conditions, and the similar problems will also be seen in Africa for the Portuguese, but we're not going to get so much into that now. All that changes as time progresses, more like the 1800s, they'll go more into the interior of these places, which we're not going to cover. But here's a picture of Cortez, Fernando Cortez, and then we have, of course, the Aztec leader, known as Montezuma. We also have another reading we're going to do on Montezuma. It's in the Google Classroom listed there for you. We'll look at that tomorrow in class together. So Cortez is going to build upon the work that Columbus had done. He comes over to Cuba. Then from Cuba, he's going to come to the Yucatan Peninsula, sail around it, and his goal is to get to, of course, the center of the Aztec, or the capital of the Aztec Empire, which is Tenochtitlan. So we'll read the story a little more in the book. It gives you more details about Montezuma and why Cortez wants to go in there and his methods. But here you can see the route that he takes. Eventually, Montezuma and Cortez are going to battle it out. This small group of Spanish conquistadors of about 600 is able to capture this huge empire, which had been about 10 million people. Some of the groups under Cortez's power or rule, under Montezuma's rule, will work with Cortez. Some of them under Montezuma's rule will work with Cortez to topple Montezuma. And we'll look at some of the details, too, that will lead to, besides technology, disease is also part of it. The Aztec Empire is fairly wealthy in the eyes of Cortez, and he comes here certainly motivated by the wealth to be found. And this is a nice Native American depiction of this interaction here by Cortez on the left and the natives. Within a few decades, so Cortez is going to start out in 1519. So this graphic here is actually going to talk about how about a silver rush by the 1590s. But keep in mind, Cortez was 1519. So it takes a couple of decades before you really see this. But we do see silver found in, and I believe Potosi is found in Peru. But there's also a silver mine in the center part of Mexico, I believe, too. So there's 2 main sources of silver for the Spaniards. So take a minute to look at that, please. You can pause the video and look at that your own. But I want you to note that they're going to force the natives, they require all citizens to provide labor as a tribute. They force them to work in the silver mines. And like any mine, mining is a challenge. I can't even imagine mining with a candle, but that's what they did. And the other key idea here, I guess, I just want to emphasize is that the wealth, the silver coming out of the mines is going to go to the Spaniards. They make the money, the natives do not. This is an interesting bar graph supporting this silver that's found and sent back to Spain. It goes back to Spain, and then Spain uses that silver to buy goods in China. So sometimes it just simply went from the Americas over to China to buy goods. We have a similar methodology found in South America where you have Pizarro. Pizarro comes about a decade after Cortez, and Pizarro will be also a conquistador. So Pizarro will battle it out with Atalupa. He captures them in battle. He holds them for ransom. The natives will pay the ransom, but Pizarro still has Atalupa murdered. So this again is a nice map showing you the control that the Spaniards will have. The viceroyalty is just a word to talk about how the Spaniards controlled it. So you have to go across the Atlantic up to Spain here. Like, how do they actually run the state? They call them these viceroyals. There's 4 of them, I believe, in the Americas, which we're not going to really look at that power. We are going to look at how the Spanish interacted with the natives and what life in colonies was like. And that's what your textbook goes through. This is an interesting chart I just want to emphasize to you. We had the explorers, the navigators of Columbus and Balboa and the Portuguese. After that comes these groups I'd call conquistadors. With the conquistadors will come some missionaries and eventually permanent settlers as they are an official colony. We will also then talk about the use of the natives. Besides working the silver mines, we see sugar brought. And this is kind of fascinating, I think, because sugar is a rare commodity in the 1400s. And I find it fascinating because, like today, we have too much sugar in our diet. But they're going to be able to take sugar, which is grown in some of the Mediterranean islands, I think like the Canary Islands. So sugar is very limited in Europe in, say, 1400 and 1500. But we can grow this crop in this new land, in these new colonies, and then we're going to force the natives to work doing that. And, of course, we have this whole issue of slavery, which is going to develop, which is coming in the same chapter here. So I think it's interesting because today we have too much sugar in so much of our diet, which is causing health problems, which, of course, you've done in your health classes and your food classes, actually. You do have some of the missionaries speak out against the treatment of the natives, and we'll talk about Father Bartolome de la Casa, who tirelessly advocates and tries to persuade the king to stop treating the natives so horribly in this forced labor. And it does start some misconceptions that the natives are not strong enough to do so. And most likely today we know that the natives, it's not they weren't strong enough, but they knew better to work in the midday sun in the tropical weather conditions there for 12 hours. And they were also highly susceptible to the European microbes or diseases. And again, we'll talk about that in a few days here.